record. So welcome, and I really thank those of you that have made this marathon that we're on. That this is our third week in a row, but we are getting through our submissions rather well. It was really nice that last week we had the Canberra people join us, and I got some really nice notes about how much they admire us in the work that we're doing, and they learned a lot from us. So that was a great connection that we made. So thank all of you. The Dental Podology Insider site is up. You can get the recordings through there, although you may or may not have gotten your Insider's key yet. And we're still in process with a lot of things. You'll be hearing more about that as we go forward. Always start with thanking the executive advisory team. Can't do this without these guys. Although you notice, guys, I haven't been saying we need a meeting every week because we did so much of the work in that one meeting to divide these up and figure out how we're going to do them. It's probably going to be 90 minutes again. If we could make it faster, I definitely would, but it's quite literally, we have a lot of things to cover. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and let's go through the recognition. Let's see, Barbie Lynch, you're here. Say hi. Hi, Barbie.
I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Barb. And Cheryl, let's everybody feel sorry for Cheryl. The Cheryls, they're down to 75 in Hawaii. So.
Aloha, everybody.
Cheryl, send some heat for the rest of us, okay?
Sure will.
Edie, has Edie made it yet? Not yet? Okay. Janet, I think I saw Janet come in. Janet? Hey, Janet.
I'm here.
There you are.
Here.
And I think, Catherine, you're pretty close to one of the first ones here. So, Catherine, say hi.
Hi, how are you, everybody?
Great to have you. By the way, now that I finally spelled your name right, and we have somebody else's name we discovered last week that I'm spelling wrong all the time.
Oh, no. Well,
but I think we fixed it. Linda Jorgensen.
Hi, everyone.
Great to have you as always. Paige.
Hello.
Thanks for being here, Paige. Susie Brzezinski.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Patty. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
Cold Buffalo. Tiffany.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, Tiffany. Valerie, have you made it yet? Not yet? Okay. How about Barb Reipick? Is she here yet? She may not be. I think she had another meeting and she was going to come in later. I don't see Brant here yet. Cindy, you might want to text him because we're doing teledentistry first, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Connie Simmons, I think I just saw her come in.
I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Where are you,
Hi.
Connie?
I'm halfway between here and New Jersey most days. I don't know where I'm at. So right now I'm in Virginia.
Oh, God. At least you have an excuse for not knowing where you're at. I feel that way myself when I'm in one place. Evelyn, has Evelyn made it yet? Not yet. Jill, say hi, Jill.
Hi, everybody.
There she is. How about Lisa Funk? Is she here yet? Not yet. Natalie, say hi, Natalie. We missed you.
Hi, everyone.
Patty B's here.
I am.
Patty?
Hi, everybody.
There she is. And co-watch the chat box with Jamie. Tammy's looking at her. Tammy, I think I just see Tammy came in.
Yep,
Hey,
I'm
Tammy.
here, Patty.
There she is. Tracy Martin. Thought I saw Tracy, but maybe not. Jamie, say hi, Jamie.
Hello, everybody.
There she is. Karen, are you here yet? Not yet. Beth? Deegan? She also had a meeting. Sandy?
I'm here. Good evening.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Sandy. Hi, Sandy. Michelle, I think I just saw you come in.
Yes. Hello. Good evening.
Hi there. Linda Jarwakowski, I think you were really here bright and early this time. Linda?
I was here. I'm still here.
There you are. Great. Renee?
Hi, yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Another northern, everybody cold here. Sherry Luke, Southern Illinois.
Hello, everyone.
We're thrilled to have you. And then from Miss Alaska, we have Alaska and Hawaii. So Lisa, say hi. Lisa, I know I saw you. I don't hear you yet. All right. Well, you can jump in later. Cindy Purdy is here too. She is, there she is. There's Cindy.
And I think Brant might be on too.
You what?
Brant said he was signing in.
Okay, great. Good, because my next slide is to welcome him. They're going to be here? Oh, Lisa Bryant's audio is not working. Hi, Lisa. We have, because we're doing the teledentistry codes, I specifically arranged that Cindy could be with us. If you're on the meeting 2 times ago, when we kind of tabled them till Cindy could be here. We also invited Brant Herman from Mouthwatch, as well as she's Edie Ivy. Edie works with Mouthwatch, but she is also an insider. So Brant, are you here now? Say hi, Brant.
Yeah, I just got connected.
Yeah, well, see, you got it just in time for your own slide.
Perfect timing.
There you are. So we're glad you're here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the review of how we do these things. Again, in the chat box, if you have not downloaded the inventories for tonight, you might want to do that. It kind of helps when we go along. One of the things is because this time I have moved the order a little bit around for how we're going to consider them. There's a couple of reasons why. Also want to remind you that it's time to renew. If you haven't renewed since August of 2018, you need to renew for your dental codology insiders. More details coming very soon. What we do in these meetings is we behave as if, in other words, as if we were on the code committee. What would we vote for these different submissions? And that's what the discussion is about, so that we can really begin to really learn and understand more of how this process works. And even if we feel like, well, we don't know a lot about that particular subject, there are all kinds of people on that committee that are voting for things they may not be their expertise. So we behave as if. Always keep us centered. Jill does the agenda, although I'm kind of sticking on that same agenda, aren't I, Jill? Been using this one for 3 weeks now. But what I'm going to do is within the next week or two, I want to send out a poll. I need to start knowing the specific number of people that will be in attendance in Chicago, because it's important that we talk to one another and we create somewhat of a strategy. So it's going to be important to know who will be there. We are already supposing that even though the meeting is always scheduled for 2 days, for the last 6 or 7 years, it's only run 1 day. Due to the number of this is also almost twice as many submissions this year than there have been for the last couple of years. I'm going to sneeze.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's you.
So there's an expectation that it actually might run 2 days. So I'll put out a survey on that one. So we have 146 submissions. I come up with a new picture of an elephant every week here. So we are taking next Sunday off for Super Bowl. So we need a break. So there will be our next meeting of this DCC will be on the 10th. So no meeting next Sunday night. It'll be on the 10th. Again, Linda did a great job. Linda Jorgensen did a great job of helping divide up and categorize the submissions. And the submissions that we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to start with 2 on teledentistry, as well 2 that were radiographic that relate to teledentistry. We're going to look at the submissions on prophylaxis. Now, the numbers that are darker there are the ones that this committee submitted. So what we want to do is we want to look at them in light of the others that have been submitted. The periodontics, we're looking at actually 75 through 100 because these are the implant codes that we did last week. I figured out a way to divide this big thing up to try and make it a little bit more digestible for all of us, because it's interesting as I go through this stuff to see the patterns that there are. With all that being said, I'm going to, as I did last week, because she does such a great job of it, I'm going to throw this over to Kathy. Kathy Forbes to talk about the important questions that we want to think about with these when we're looking at these submissions. So go for it, Kathy.
Okay. Well, as Linda already did in breaking up the 146, we need to look at, are there any related submissions? And obviously with prophylaxis, we'll find that the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry has some very similar, and, you know, consider those as they relate to the ones that we have already voted on. Is the submission a duplicate of a code? This can get a little tricky sometimes. We may think it isn't a duplicate, but the CMC could, but we need to scrutinize and think, is there one they could overlap and say it's a duplicate, so they would reject it? Is the submission product-based? They're very strict on this, that they don't want any type of product name, manufacturer's name in with the submission. So as we review these, is there any leaning toward that? Is the submission clear? As we found out last week, sometimes it's like you read it and go, what? And we want to make sure who submitted it and is it clear or not, and maybe we can determine that. Is a submission unbundling? The CMC is big on doing some bundling, and sometimes they'll reject something because it's part of another code. So stressing the metrics behind why we might want to unbundle something is going to be important. Again, product neutral, making sure it's procedure specific, that it's just a procedure, and that it's provider neutral, that none of these procedures are linked to a specific provider. We have all sorts of dental health care providers that are guided by statute. So want to make sure that none of that is in here. It's strictly procedure codes. And that the procedures language does not impose any specific business model onto it. And that definitely relates to who is billing for it. For example, the comprehensive oral evaluation says only a dentist can do that. And we know by the number of states, Michigan just recently introduced and passed dental therapists. I know Washington State's getting ready to submit a proposal to their legislature. So we don't want to you know, impose any specific business model onto a procedure that's described.
Thank you. And these are all the questions, and not limited to these, but these are the minimum of what you'd be looking at when you're looking at a submission. Now we need you to vote, and we use the chat box for this. And just like there would be at the committee, you'd actually vote yes, yay, nay, or abstain. And the reason why we want to do that is, again, if we're going to behave as if, let's really make it so. So I really encourage all of you to think through these things. Let's talk about them. If you don't understand them, we know that there's some of us that have been at this for a while, and don't let us dominate. If you have a question, even if you go, I don't really get it, you know, whatever it is, please share that. This is an open meeting, open for everybody's discussion, because this is all about learning for everyone. So what we wanted to start with, Cindy, just so you know where I'm going, Cindy, is submissions number 145 and 146. This is being submitted by Dr. Stephen Roberts to the American Association of Orthodontics. Now, what's going to be interesting about these is their position also in the meeting. Like any other discussion, like any other meeting, when they're getting close to the end, people are getting tired. And I've seen times, by the time they get to the last one, there's like zero discussion because they're tired. When I say there's zero discussion, sometimes it's just because they pass it right through. Sometimes they just ignore it and get rid of it altogether. So the position that something comes up at the committee is also important. So this is the very last two of 146 submissions to be heard. So what we want to look at is who is Dr. Stephen Roberts and what is he? Well, we know the American Association of Orthodontists is a sitting member of the committee. So Dr. Roberts got together with the Ortho Association, and so they already have a little bit more backing because they have one of the members that has the name here. Now, as you know, Cindy Purdy and I wrote the Teledentistry book, which is kind of our lane to talk about. This is also why we invited Grant to be here, is to talk about where things are going with the whole teledentistry world And even with our division of labor within what Cindy and I did together, Cindy has a bit more expertise in the legislative end of it. And she's had some experience also. So one of the things that we found out is that Dr. Roberts also started something called the American Teledentistry Association. And from there, I'm going to have Cindy, I'm going to hand it off to you, Cindy, to explain a little bit what you know, where your experience has been, and what happened with New Mexico, etc.
Well, I think I would like to talk about New Mexico because they are in the process of working on this right now, along with passing dental therapists. But I would like Brant to give us an overview of his opinion and of this American teledentistry and the orthodontist input.
Okay. So I don't know about Dr. Roberts and his association with ATDA, the American Teledentistry Association. I know that Dr. Mark Ackerman, who is an orthodontist, is the founder of the ATDA, and there seems to be, and I can't say there specifically are, aside from some sponsorship of some teleorthodontic companies that support the ATDA. So I think if you look at companies like Smile Direct Club and Candid Company, so everything that's kind of direct to consumer orthodontics helps encourage ATDA. And different from Mouthwatch and Teledent, a lot of what ATDA currently supports with teleortho is direct to consumer, empower consumers to choose their orthodontic solution provider. So what we see as an opportunity, or I think what they're trying to do is make these definitions allow for a distinction in how orthodontic treatments kind of guiding these codes beyond just specific dental treatments. So I'm not sure if that's helpful, but I think the ATDA may be behind some lobbying efforts to change codes or to determine how teledentistry coding is done and make a distinction. And I think this Academy of Orthodontics appears to be to offset that. So I think you have one effort to make it so that location of service can happen in the dental office as opposed to the location of the patient. And I think what the American Academy of Orthodontics seems to be doing, and this is just taking a stab at it, it's more to make that discrete, that distinction that this is definitely not happening with a dentist present. Not sure if that's helpful.
It is helpful. Thank you, Brant. Cindy, would it be helpful if we looked at the codes first, or do you want to talk about the New Mexico situation first?
Let's look at the codes first.
Okay. Okay. So here is the code, and what it does is it takes the code that was new for last year, that was teledentistry synchronous real-time encounter, and specifically adds the language, does not involve any in-person, in-office interaction with a licensed dentist. Okay? You can see the descriptor, that hasn't really changed. This is the second one, which is asynchronous, and it just adds the same name. What they had is the rationale for both of them were that dental treatment models currently exist without involving the physical presence of a licensed dentist. In many cases, the patient information is collected remotely, forwarded to the reviewing dentist for future evaluation. I'm not going to sit here and read it to you. This is why I sent you all this stuff. But these are the two rationales. So the question is why does this Dr. Roberts, the orthodontist, and or the American Teledentistry Association, why do they think that this language is needed to add to this code?
Because, well, I'm going to say, first of all, I think Brant was very polite in his description, and I'm not sure I could have done that. What they're trying to do when it's based on orthodontics is they want the patient to be at their home and be able to have their dentistry done from an orthodontist who's somewhere else. And they're changing the exact description. And the way we view teledentistry is that we have a dental professional out in the field, and then the dentist is at the office or at his home or whatever, and they're doing the diagnosing and the treatment planning. And they're trying to change it. I'm looking up, I'm trying to buy myself just a little bit of time here because I'm looking up the exact definitions, and Brant, you may be able to help me out here, of what the off-site definitions are and how they're changing those around, exact opposite of what Medicare and Medicaid are describing.
Right, so I think there's two things to look at here, and I think the New Mexico case and the legislative change proposed there is different than the CDT code. I think the CDT code suggestion is backed by brick and mortar orthodontists who want to make a distinction potentially for future insurance claims to say that maybe there's either a different code that an evaluation, whatever code an orthodontist is submitting with the teleortho or the teledentistry code, is handled a little bit differently. So I think this is orthodontists pushing back against Smile Direct Club and consumer-facing ortho. I think what happens in New Mexico, that's more supported by Smile Direct Club and
Correct.
Consumer-facing orthodonture. So I think they're trying to say in New Mexico, in the language, I believe that they're trying to change the originating site, which is traditionally the location to the benefit of the patient. So if you were to go to a school or go to a home, that's the originating site. What they're trying to do is say, no matter where the patient is, the originating site is the dentist's office. And I think the longer game, which Cindy and I have spoken about, is if the patient is not even in New Mexico, but they're talking to a dentist in New Mexico, that dentist is the originating site, so patient location doesn't matter, which then opens up a whole bunch of opportunity for a teleortho type product. Right, so then you have a patient uploading photographs, the diagnosis and treatment plan done by a New Mexico dentist, even though they might be in Texas. So I think you've got two sides of the coin here.
Okay, I need more explanation. I'm not sure I get it all yet.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think a big battle for the American Association of Orthodontists right now is to protect in-office ortho, right? They want to make sure that patients are coming in and that you're not getting some random provider that you've never met treatment planning your case with clear aligners. To that end, I think they're making this modification. I'm not exactly sure 3 steps down the road what it is. I think right now what they're trying to say is to be very clear that you're never really talking to a provider in an office setting. I'm not exactly sure what that does for the orthodontist, but that's why I think they want this distinction, right? To say that when you do a Smile Direct treatment plan, you're not ever talking to the doctor in a doctor's office setting.
So it's asynchronous, so it's a live connection between a patient and what? And who then? If it's not an in-person, in-office with a licensed dentist, who are they connecting with?
Well, I think they would, and that's why I don't see what this really does. And I think I have
No, it's like what? We're going to connect to a machine? I mean, I don't understand. If it's synchronous, it's live.
Wait a minute. What about a lab person who's going to take the, do something with whatever photos? It's far-fetched, but,
It's not very far-fetched.
But is that synchronous? I mean, that would be asynchronous if they're interacting with photos. This is if it's synchronous, again, how does this even make any sense?
If it's synchronous, why couldn't they be there doing the pictures or whatever that they're doing to a lab and have the person in the lab say, oh no, take that one over again. Okay, angle it this, change this a little bit, trying to get maybe better pictures, but they're not a dentist. And they're going to make the aligners. I don't know.
I need to see the rationale again. Let me.
This is Tiffany from New York.
Yeah, please.
I was just wondering, you know, because we use like Cirrus Connect or something like that. So with like Invisalign, you use your digital camera in office. You take the images. The computer is telling you whether your images are good or not, and then you're sending them off. The lab is constructing all of your trays and then sending them back to you. I mean, this is an in-office situation, but that's kind of similar when you're taking impressions at home and then, you know, sending them to a lab, and then they're working on them that way. So that's where I think they're going with the, you know, does not involve any in-person office interaction.
This makes denturists look good.
Exactly.
Even in the clinical scenario, I'm reading the last sentence, live streaming, video conferencing, intraoral camera, file sharing can be done with your cell phone?
I don't know if HIPAA would like that.
Right.
So, Cindy, maybe explain the New Mexico situation. It might shed a little bit of something, at least for us to think through a little farther on what's going on there.
Okay. Let me open up that section. So New Mexico last year was approached by Brant, was it the American Teledentistry Association?
No, I think it wasn't that direct. I think it was just a lobbyist.
But it was all sponsored through orthodontics, and they were trying to change the definition of teledentistry so that first of all, it could only be done by dentists. Didn't say anything about dental hygienist or independent practicing dental hygienist. This year they are trying to change it. They're trying to add that it says the practice of dentistry where the patient, this is the definition of teledentistry, the practice of dentistry where the patient and the dentist are not in the same physical location and the dentist uses electronic information, imaging, and communication technologies, including interactive audio, video, and data communications, as well as store and forward technologies to provide and support dental health care deliveries, diagnosis, consultation, treatment, and transfer of dental data, where the originating site of teledentistry is the location at which the dentist provides the services. That is completely opposite of how Medicaid defines the originating site. They define the originating site as I would say, as out in the field, the place where the data is being collected. And that's the way it has been accepted throughout all of telehealth definitions, is that is the originating site. And they are trying to, in New Mexico right now, they are trying to change it so that the originating site is where the dentist is. And that changes, and that would provide I believe the reason for that change is because of fee collection. Do you have any comment, Brant?
Well, I think the fee collection would still end up in the payer's hands as to whether they're going to allow kind of the treatment plan or evaluation codes with the teledentistry code added on. I think it's more of, you know, kind of where does it lead and where does the patient need to be, right? Does the patient still need to be in New Mexico to have an encounter with a dentist or orthodontist who's in New Mexico, or can that patient be anywhere? You know, and I think last year when this came up, they were talking about, well, what if the patient moves, right? Can't they still be seen by their existing provider? And I think that may have been the feel-good explanation for someone who started in an in-office consult. But I think the evolution of it, you know, and I think the end game goal for a company like Smile Direct is, you know, that if the fewer doctors they need to have in order to treatment plan, the better off they are. Right? So typically each state's practice act is saying, no, you have to be in the state where your dentist is licensed in order to see them. And I think this New Mexico change is more that It only matters where the dentist is. It doesn't matter where the patient is.
And the problem with this is, well, the shocking thing that for New Mexico is these same people said that they were going to be targeting the top 10 states that were the most teledentistry friendly to get the wording changed on this. So that's why it just concerns me when I start seeing orthodontics trying to change the CDT codes, because it's like, okay, which side are you on? Are you trying to protect the orthodontist so that this telehealth orthodontics can't be taken all across the country and just having two dentists sitting in two states doing all the diagnosing? You know, and that's why I'm confused myself as to why they're so specific that to say that you are not seeing a dentist. I don't know why they want that added in on these definitions.
It's definitely not clear. And I know that I'm going to put you on the spot, both Natalie and Tammy, from the association point of view. And I know you're not speaking for the association in this discussion, but from a first glance, from the Assistants Association, Natalie, from, you know, in the states where you have, and especially somebody like you have that can do much expanded practice, how does this thing hit you at first glance?
Well, I know currently we are utilizing advanced dental therapists for our telehealth exams, particularly in the office that I work in. But as an association, we haven't really discussed it because we're trying to fix dental assisting in general. It varies so greatly from state to state.
Yeah. We hygienists think we are the only ones that have the variance, but you have much greater variance on dental.
Yes, we do.
Without a doubt. Tammy, anything from ADHA? I know we have policy on telehealth that was put into our policies and procedures. Any general thoughts, either from your own point of view or from the association point of view, on anything with teledentistry here?
Yeah, I actually just pulled that policy too, Patty. It says ADHA supports the utilization of technologies, including but not limited to telehealth, as a means to reduce oral health disparities. So, you know, with the provider-specific language here, I think that would obviously be a discussion point for ADHA.
Patty?
Yeah?
This is Linda Jorgensen. I feel like there's 3 different questions here. The first one is, what's the procedure? The second one is, who's providing the procedure? Who's performing it? And the third one, which is sort of hidden behind the curtain or implied, is who's paying for it? And so if they're trying to design a code that can only be reimbursed to a dentist, a licensed dentist, that's, you know, matched up with the bricks and mortar and the patient and all that kind of stuff, even if it is matched up by teledentistry, I feel like that's where it wanders into that category of really it's good to be clear about what's the procedure. And I completely understand a profession wanting to protect itself.
Right.
From, I get that. We get that all the time as dental hygienists. We want to protect our profession and make sure that people who aren't qualified, who aren't really allowed to practice, shouldn't be allowed to practice because it's not in the statutes that way. That they're not setting up shop somewhere and providing services and then getting reimbursed by an insurance company or some, you know, it's just like that part's wrong. So that's where I feel like these 2 proposals, or the submissions 145 and 146, are kind of in that territory. And I would just like to stick with, what's the procedure we're talking about here? Stick with that first question. What's the procedure? And not impose the business model question and the reimbursement question, even though I understand the importance of it, but not for the code manual. I don't know, am I wrong? Am I thinking wrong?
No, I think that has a great deal of clarity. Any other comments, any thoughts on what Linda is saying here?
This is Cindy. I just don't understand because why they are adding that in with a licensed dentist, not interaction, because there are many times in synchronous that it does involve a licensed dentist.
Because
so
they're making these very specific to, because what would we use with the way we've been using it previously? What would we use if we did have someone involved? I mean, would these not be the most accurate code then?
That's what I'm thinking.
999?
That's what I'm thinking. My thought is they're not even adding 2 new codes. They're trying to change the existing codes. And if we can't use this with a licensed, then what code is a licensed dentist supposed to use?
Cindy, this is Kathy. I agree with you. I think they're restricting it. If they wanted to do anything, create 2 new codes and not take away from these originating ones are.
Right. That's what I was thinking also. That's
and
what
this
I'm
is
confused,
Branch.
I guess.
Like, we don't see a lot of non-dental providers providing services that are tagged with teledentistry. They're typically, the ones that are associating a teledentistry code with them are procedures that, to begin with, need to be done by a dentist, right? They're evaluation codes, and basically that's it, potentially x-ray codes. But I think it's a little bit to me of where does this code then lead to, of just like in California did with teledentistry, was they were very clear of saying these are the procedure codes that can be done with a teledentistry code attached to them. And we haven't seen states become that clear as to say, look, we understand teledentistry exists, and we're going to say that these are the procedure codes which can be used with a teledentistry code attached. And I don't know if that's the longer game for orthodonture, is to say, you know, these procedures, maybe it's a higher reimbursed code for an orthodontic treatment plan or initiation, that would not be suitable if it wasn't, you know, if it was done with the teledentistry code.
The thing if I can interject here, is that if teledentistry, I totally agree, is from the evaluation code point of view. But for example, here in Colorado, 3 of the evaluation codes by rule and reg can be done by direct access hygienists.
Right.
Where there may not be a licensed dentist involved making that diagnosis, because the hygienist can do that. So, you know, by again putting a provider in there just is going to limit. We know hygienists out in the community here in Colorado are using those codes. So yeah, I don't want to see any kind of dentist attached to these kinds of nomenclatures.
Right, I agree.
Okay, so let's take a vote, because again, I think we've talked, and again, for an awful lot of us, this is all new, and I understand if you don't if you don't get it. So we're going to vote on them both together, and you can say yay, nay, or abstain. Now we're going to go back to 2 codes that are kind of related in that they were on imaging, and they were codes that we talked in our first week. Now this was brought forward by a dentist, and the reason I have the words capture of images for teledentistry is because that's what's written in the rationale. So this is a capture of 7 images, a capture of 8 or more images. And what they're trying to do with this is, it talks about teledentistry in here. And they were talking about, you know, that sometimes we don't need as many codes, many x-rays, and so we need to have codes. I think Renee, are you on the call? Was it Renee, or who was it that was explaining this one to us? Let's see, Renee. She had another meeting. Go ahead, Kathy, you have something to say?
No.
Okay.
So basically, this is the person that's capturing. They're trying to find a way for to denote that they have captured the images, and then to have a code, a separate code for the diagnostics of the X-ray.
I think so. I think so.
this is Michelle Gross-Panico.
Radiographs, that's all it says. Plaster of 7 images, and then it has this as
Hi, Patty.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Patty? Okay.
Yes.
This is Michelle Gross-Panico.
Oh, there it is. You're the one that explained it to us before. Yes. Explain it again.
Yeah.
Now in light of our other teledentistry discussion.
Okay. I've been working with Dr. Tara Mattingly for the last few years discussing this potential opportunity to modify or revise the code. And she decided to move forward this year to submit this. And basically the rationale is that in Arizona, we have direct access to care dental hygienists. And I know that there's 40 states, I believe, total that have that. And one of the issues that we're encountering in Arizona, so we're anticipating it's also being encountered throughout the U.S., is that the direct access to care dental hygienists may be at a different location when providing services. Let's just take, for example, like school-based care. So let's say a dental hygienist is providing services at the local elementary school, and she does the assessments and takes radiographs, and then through teledentistry communicates with the affiliated or the affiliated dentist. And the affiliated dentist can log in and take a look at the x-rays that were taken and then make some comments in the patient chart and do some diagnostics or treatment planning notes within the electronic record. So what happens with the radiographs is that the direct access, the way the codes are currently written, the direct access to care dental hygienists cannot bill for taking those images, because the wording with the current code is that it says the images need to be captured and read and then billed for. So the code is for both capturing and reading. But what we have done with teledentistry or direct access to care dental hygienists is that, in fact, the capturing and the reading of the image may not be occurring in the same location or by the same provider at the same moment in time. So what the vision is to have one code for capturing the image and one code for reviewing the image and reading the image and actually making the diagnostic or the treatment plan based off that image. The idea is so that it would be similar to, there is actually a radiograph code. I'm fumbling through my CDT book here. There is a radiograph code for it, that's similar to this.
391, 0391.
Yes, it's in the rationale there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There we go. Yep. So, yeah, there's currently a code for interpretation of diagnostic images by a practitioner not associated with the captured image, including report, but it is for CTs and MRIs. So the idea is to create that same type of structure, but for a situation where you might have a direct access to care provider, dental hygienist in one of those states. And that way the direct access to care provider can be paid or reimbursed for their time of actually taking the image, and the dentist can be paid for their time in interpreting and reading the image. Currently, the workaround that we've done in Arizona is that the dentist and the hygienist enter into an agreement, and then once the dentist submits the claim and gets reimbursed, pays a portion or percentage of that to the hygienist. It creates another layer, I guess, another difficulty, I guess. It's just nice that if you are a direct access to care provider, that you can go ahead and recover reimbursement for it directly for your services.
So would that not also be in any practice where the hygienist takes the images and then the dentist reads them? If we have this code, we would no longer have a 4-bite wings. We would take intraoral capture of up to 7 images, and that's what we're going to use this code for. And then the doctor would read those, and we would be documented through the 0391. Would that scenario not? Because
you could, but it would just be an extra code to submit. I don't see, if you're a dentist, I don't see why you would do that. I think
there's always been a long contention about who gets paid for the x-rays.
Correct.
When a hygienist is on commission, who gets paid for the x-rays? And this is, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if this is for a teledentistry or a It doesn't say that in the code, and none of that rationale goes with the, you know, with the eventual, if this gets passed. So how would anybody know how to use this particular code?
Patty, if I might interject, when I'm looking in the CDT book, our typical X-ray taking is under a subheading, image capture and interpretation. So the way I hear what they're coming up with, this is, and then they've got interpretation and report only. So what we're doing is creating a separate sub that would be capture only, and there isn't one. The first thing is image capture with interpretation report. So this is kind of in between that, being just the capture of the image. So that's,
there is image capture only.
There is,
but it's only for, yeah, there is,
yeah.
but yes, exactly, on page 9, but it's for CTs. It's for CTs, MRI.
Right.
Patty?
Yeah.
Linda Jorgensen again. Will the committee view this as unbundling?
I don't know. I don't know, because I mean the whole CT world, at one point there used to be what, like 5 codes for CTs, and they made it, you know, what do they have now? 25. You know, it just really depends. Is this a change in technology that's making this happen? You know, again,
I think it's practical from the sense that, I mean, the capture of the images can be very separate from the interpretation, and often it is. The person who's capturing it is not the person who's doing the final interpretation and diagnosis using those captured images. So, I mean, as far as unbundling, if they go directly to, this is unbundling, therefore we're going to deny it. We're not even going to talk about it. I would encourage them to talk about it, because this is the way, especially now with the availability of teledentistry, this is the way information is gathered.
Yeah. Plus, if this, go on.
Wait, I was just going to say the concept is that we wouldn't want to upset the apple cart too much. We wanted the private practice industries, or the, you know, dental industry that's working where a dental hygienist is under general or direct supervision would continue to use the same codes and proceed as they do already. We don't want to upset the apple cart too much, just kind of business as usual. The idea is that 2 codes would be added to the image capture only section that you see on page 9. And those 2 codes would be used for the direct access to care providers, and then use the interpret and report only code that's already existing, the 0391, for the interpretation piece. So really all you're doing is adding 2 new codes without upsetting or changing anything else. So the idea is to not confuse or change what's already existing. These 2 codes would just be for the direct access to care type of models that are going on, whether that be with dental therapy or dental hygienist, but those kinds of settings where there's not that general supervision or direct supervision.
Right, but again, then would we not be limiting it by a model of business that way? And that's why I'm arguing for the other side, because even under general supervision, a hygienist could see the patient on Monday and the doctor not coming until Wednesday to actually read and interpret those x-rays. So what is the accurate date of service for that treatment? When is the submission going in, even under the current system? There's usually a lie on one end or the other, because we either put the wrong date that they were taken or the wrong date that they were read. So this is where it's an interesting discussion.
So Patty, if we were to improve this code, what would your suggestion be? Like, are you saying maybe make the approach different? Like, not suggest these type of 2 new code submissions, but rather just take all the existing radiographic codes and change that little paragraph right before image capture with interpretation, and instead kind of revise the definition of the existing, like all the existing radiographic codes instead?
I sure don't have an answer to that, but that's an excellent question, to which I think we could take up on another, you know, one of our committees to really look at that, because this is the changing world that we're in now. And these questions are going to become greater because at this point now, what about the rest of the tests that are there? Then we start doing the testing. So we have a carrier susceptibility test. Who can read that test? Is that reading and interpretation? Do you see what I'm going here? Is this
Right.
Is this the direction a lot of these things need to go because of the changing world? So again, I don't have the specific answer, but I thought it was worth us discussing it a second time, Michelle. So thank you.
Gotcha.
I would also like to contribute from a teledentistry point of view that I like the fact that each hygienist and each dentist can have their own specific contract, because there may be some dentists who will say, no, absolutely not. I do not want to agree to this. I want to, in my contract, I want to make it specific that I will get all of the fee compensation for diagnosing it. And if you start putting it where the hygienist, or I'm just using that as the concept from teledentistry, that the hygienist or whoever is capturing it can take it, there may be dentists who will not be interested in becoming involved in teledentistry or telehealth because they don't want to get involved in that type of contract. They don't want that type of situation. So I think it may be limiting to who would be interested. It's already hard enough for hygienists to find dentists who will do their evaluations and who will work with them. I think this is just a way to limit it more.
I think it's challenging for the business model to really function like direct access care dental hygiene. First off, the reimbursement rates are really low, obviously from Medicaid. But second off, it does take time for a dental hygienist to take these images, and therefore you're not being paid for the time that you're taking to produce the image. So it's a hard business model when someone else is getting reimbursed for the time that you kind of scheduled in your appointment book. Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I use teledentistry myself. I agree with that statement, but I don't know that this is the way to do it.
I had a thought. This is Janet Jordan. I put in the chat box, if the wording was remote capture for future evaluation by the dentist or however, and then create a code for the dentist for evaluation and diagnosis of remote images that were submitted. And that way you could have the two separate dates. If she took them on Wednesday, but the dentist didn't look at them until Friday, she has her submission for her capture and upload, and the dentist would have a submission on the later date for the interpretation and evaluation.
Brant, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Isn't there specific wording so that evaluations have to be transmitted, the data has to be transmitted and sent to a HIPAA compliant cloud or something like that, which is the reason, so that evaluations can get reimbursed?
That depends, I believe, on the state defining that. It's not.
Okay. Because I was thinking maybe the same thing could happen here, where the image has to be captured and then transmitted. You know, if we add, just like similar to what you were just saying, that she was just saying about remote, but maybe it's more so in the transmission of those captured images.
Right. Yeah, it could. I mean, I have a question, and I'm not a clinician, but my question is more, and probably more to Michelle, would you see, let's say the hygienist submits this code for the image capture of be it x-rays or intraoral photos, but then the dentist, not just the interpretation code, but wouldn't they be submitting more of a 4-byte wing code or a 2-byte wing code? And that's what they're getting paid off of?
Well, the dentist would, I think if I understand your question, you're asking specifically what is the dentist code that the dentist would submit. They would submit the interpretation and report only code, which is already existing. It's a D0391. So there's already a code for the dentist. We were just creating 2 codes for the direct access to care provider.
So where would the delineation of what exactly we did take in those 7 images, or would there be?
There wouldn't be, because the idea was we didn't want to develop how many X-ray codes are there right now. one for a periapical, one for occlusal, one for single bite wing, 2 bite wing, 3 bite wing, vertical bite wing, it goes on and on. So instead, we just bundle them as if you took like 1 to 7 image, you would use this code, and if you used 8 or more images, then you would use the other code.
I guess what I'm saying is, from a doctor, one of the things about codes that sometimes we forget is codes are for third-party reimbursements. They're also for accurate electronic health records. And so how is our electronic health records actually defining 1 to 7 images of what? And again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. It's a bite wing is a very well-defined thing. 2 bite wings, a full mouth X-ray, it's specified what that means. We don't have any specificity to this, so would that be just in the notes that we would have that we took 4 of this or 1 of that or 2 of those or whatever? You see where I'm going?
Is it bite wings or is it intraoral images? Is it radiographs or is it intraoral images? Or do we not want to specify that?
Let me review back and see what did Dr. Mattingly actually put in there. She says intraoral capture up to 7 images. So technically, I guess you could potentially use that for intraoral camera pictures too.
Right. So then, even more so, where would the specificity of what we took come in? For documentation.
Now we could be using radiographs.
Right. I could see value in a code like this that initially would probably be paid by public insurance, let's say a Medicaid program. I could see them understanding the value of reimbursing direct access hygienists for the data collection time and energy. But I could see this paired with the specific clinical images that are taken being billed by the dentist. Right, so the interpretation of the 2 bite wings, the 4 bite wings, the full mouth series, whatever that is,
I see.
Dentist billing that, but this is being a code to accommodate. And Cindy, I think your point, if you added in something about that they were captured remotely and shared to a provider, right, to a dentist for interpretation, then it's clear that it's in the transmission, that it's just for kind of the offsite capture fee.
And again, are they photos or are they radiographs, or does it matter?
I think the way Dr. Manley wrote it, it doesn't seem to matter.
Because we could be using up their radiograph coverage with intraoral pictures. And I take intraoral pictures on every single teledentistry patient that I see. So would they cover the intraoral pictures but not cover the bite wings?
Well, I like the comment that was said earlier.
And this is saying images, it's not saying photographs. So I think it does cover radiographs and photographs.
And I like your point about, maybe the dentist could bill the D0391 interpretation, but then also attach a code like D0272, meaning bite wings, 2 radiographic images of bite wings.
Right.
That way we're understanding specifically what was read. Yeah. That's an interesting approach too. Thank you for your feedback.
Lisa.
So I think it's time for us to vote because we need to move on. We've got a lot of things to cover. So it really, thank you, Michelle, again. We really appreciate it. And that's the way this works, is the more we talk about it, the deeper understanding we get of it. So write your vote in the way you feel about it right now. And then we're going to move forward on overseas. Excuse me.
That's you.
That's good. Into our prophy codes. Now, we have a suite here, actually a couple of them to look at. We have from the AAPD, this is a couple things to look at. It's Dr. Paul, however you say his name. He is the chair of the AAPD Committee on Dental Benefits. Okay, so we've got a member, we've got a powerful member that has submitted. Kathy also knows from talking with them that they have also been talking to NADP, which is the National Association of Dental Plans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present a whole bunch of things, and then we're going to vote. Because this is AAPD. Now, what they're saying is the prophylaxis should be changed to a patient 12 years of age with the same basic description that we've had for a long time. And we've had a prophylaxis for a child 13 years and older. The rationale for both of them reads the same. The descriptors for adult and child prophylaxis, and they want to get rid of the words transitional, la 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 la. So that's what the AAPD wants to do it. They want to do it for 12 and under and 13 and above. We are not going to vote on those two until we look at what we submitted and why we submitted it. And I'm pulling something out of my own online course just to get a vision here. The challenge that we have to me on these codes is that we forget about the entire continuum when we think about the codes. Current prophylaxis, as it's currently stated, goes from the initial stages of disease to in the beginning stages. Then with the new one, we have the scaling and replaning. We have the scaling in the presence of gingival inflammation. Then we have the scaling and replaning. 490 only goes with those. The thing is I have arrows that go both ways because things change. And when things change, it's not based on how old they are. I think that's the basis for what we try to do with our consortium. So Kathy, I'm going to let you go through these, and all I did is I put just the first page of them so you can explain in general how our committee came up with this level of variety and why it's important.
Okay, in looking at this again, we wanted to make it dentition specific, and when last year when I talked to Paul from the AAPD, he was in agreement that having 3, primary, transitional, and permanent, was a better way to go. Now, they have defaulted back to the age after talking with the NADP, so which makes me think the NADP may be leaning more toward making it age specific for whatever reason. But from a metric standpoint, we wanted to spread it out. And on the original rationale, we wanted to, before you can pick any of these codes, you need a diagnosis. So the actual rationale to them includes all the ICD-10 2019 dental diagnostic codes, which will be interesting to see if they acknowledge those because they're really specific in the inventory in terms of the diagnosis. So we started with the primary dentition. The second one's a transitional. And then going along with the new AAP classification, we wanted the permanent dentition with an intact periodontium and then one with a stable periodontium. And we've actually got photos in the inventories that for those who maybe need to be reminded what a stable reduced periodontium could look like, they would see that there is a difference. We've got the 4346 code, which was for generalized moderate to severe. One of the things, just diverting back to those other prophylaxis codes, the definitions say there's no inflammation. So in that
less than 30% inflammation.
Right.
That was in the slide. Okay. Oh.
Yeah. Present with clinical health. So we've got the 4346, which is moderate to severe, but we did not have one for scaling in the presence of localized slight. And so then we wanted to do a scaling in the presence of generalized slight. And then thirdly, I think we've got, that's it.
And that was it. Localized slight and generalized slight.
So we've got, talk about invaluable metrics to be able to take a look at these different levels of gingival inflammation, and based on, the ICD-10 dental diagnostic codes, it really pigeonholes and makes it easier to pick which one you're going to do. So we lumped all these suites together. None of these particular codes, there's no bone loss, no recession, no, you are not on a route. These are all.
Except this one.
Except for that one. I'm sorry, yes. This for the stable one, and we have photos of a stable periodontium with recession for that. And we wanted to also make this dental prophylaxis. Notice the last line in the descriptor, patient has no history of periodontal therapy, including scaling and root planing. Because we've all had those patients that have been babied along, and by Jove, they took our suggestions on health, and they look healthy, but never really had the formal scaling and root planing. And there's been, you couldn't call them a perio maintenance, you couldn't call them a delt prophy. So this particular one would cover that.
Okay, discussion at all on the comparison of these two different suites? Lisa?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, did you say something in the chat box? Say it out loud.
Yeah, I like having more of these options, especially the one with the stable periodontium with loss, because that's where I find the most difficulty when those patients haven't had the scaling or root planing, but they're not quite a prophy.
Any other comments?
I think it's well written. 43.
So we had our committee worked really, really hard on this, guys. So I mean, these now the thing is that I want to explain before we vote, because in addition, with the addition of those codes, both AACD, although I've missed the A there, and I mean AACD and the DCC, we wanted to delete the current prophy codes. So 4 of the submissions are to delete the current prophy codes. So AACD had 2 codes adding, we're talking about adding 5 codes, and then there's 4 more codes, there's a lot of them there, to get rid of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to vote these in suites. So please vote on number 38 and 39, that's the AACD age-based changes, are yay, or nay, or abstain. Okay. Then we have the R5, 6 actually. Do we want to have it where we have that differentiation? Number 40 to 45. And finally, on the third one, and this one again, let me explain again. When you vote no to this one, this is asking if you want to have these deleted. If you say no, that means you want to keep them. So if you want to vote, if you want to delete those codes, the current prophy codes, you need to say, yes, I want them deleted. Okay? So for 46 to 49.
Yeah, Patty, this is Sherry Lukes. I think I'm confused. I think I was confused.
I thought that was, okay? This is where always in legislative things it gets a little confused, because the question before us is, do you want to vote to say, yes, we want the codes deleted, or no, we do not want the codes deleted? If you say no, you don't want the codes deleted, that means you want to keep the D1110 and the D1120 as they currently stand. Does that help, Sherry?
Yes, yes.
It always cracked me up too. Moving forward into periodontics. This is interesting. And Michelle, this is also something, again, looking forward with those capture codes, that sometimes the change is not necessarily in the code itself. Sometimes it's in the descriptor section before that. This is the periodontic section. And in the periodontic section, there are definitions that have to do with the changes that are wanted by AACD, perio group. Anyway, too many APs. Anyway, in the next 2. So what they want to do is they want to change the description of a couple of parts of this. That also is something that can be voted on. So the first one, and by the way, when we talk about Somebody that you hear a lot when you go to the committee is Marie Schreinemann, who is the representative for the American Academy of Periodontology. She ends up usually sitting next to the guy from NADP, and she talks a lot about the AAPD, the Academy of Periodontology has lots of opinions on lots of things. So this is the first of their, I don't think, they're not really called editorial, because editorial means that they could do it without actually bringing it for the committee. But they want to change the general descriptor to scratch those those words, as you can see there, and just use the word up to 2 contiguous edentulous teeth. So what they're doing is they're changing a definition. In the same way, they want to change another part of the definition. Instead of having it each area's recession, they want to make it tooth. So they're making some simplifications. Their rationale for both of them is the subcategory surgical services is followed by, that defines a site. As you can read there, they want to switch it to a per tooth versus a site. Any discussion?
Hey, can you explain why you think they, what the rationale is for the rationale?
Not really. Kathy?
Yeah. I think there's something coming down the pike, is what I think.
Yeah.
I think they're setting this up for other things to come next year. Plus, the ICD-10 dental diagnostic codes did not have a lot of changes for 2019, and I anticipate probably AAP's working on changes to that. So I think this is just kind of a precursor.
They are, because when I was at a meeting at AAP, they said that they were proposing, at least, Kathy, remember I called you because I said they were proposing 150 changes to ICD.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so there's some language that's being straightened out here. But
and I think
all
that,
we have is exactly what you're seeing here.
Yeah, I think this will match whatever they're going to do to ICD-10.
Yeah. And this clarification of site, tooth versus site, also did come into play with the D4346, because at one point it wasn't clear whether that was a per site or per tooth code, and they made it a per tooth. So, all right, vote. And remember, there is abstain. Which I always do. I'm not sure. So now we're going to do a whole bunch of them together here, because as I dug through them, the next 25 are all related. As you heard me right, 25 together. Oh no, not that. Before we get to that, I forgot we had this one. This is an individual, this Hendrik Tofu Tabu. I have no idea who that is. Didn't say it does this on her own, that wants to change significantly the full mouth debridement code. As you can see, he wants to get rid of the language that was specifically placed in there to say this is just for the debridement, and they got rid of his language is all about a busy American society and what's in the best interest of the patient. To that FFMD and a comprehensive exam can be done at the same time, la, la, la.
Well, he's a dentist in Virginia.
Okay.
Has worked with Care Credit.
Patty, this is Linda. Do we have any sense of why they wrote this code the way they did, separating the full mouth debridement from the exam? You know, that they can't be performed on the same day. I never really did understand that. Why did they do that?
I can give you an opinion. I can't give you the factual.
Okay.
necessarily. My opinion and my understanding has been is that the idea of the full mouth debridement was this is the gross scale code. And even though gross scale hasn't been supported in periodontal literature for a very, very long time, it still is out there as a procedure. And there's still a whole lot of dentists out there thinking gross scale, fine scale is the way we treat periodontal disease. And so this is, I've always considered this code a vestige. Now, Kathy, you fought hard for the changes that we got this far. So maybe you have more background or input as to why this code exists and the value of this code.
I think the intent of making it, you do this before you do a comprehensive, was to get a better visual. In other words, you know, the idea behind debridement was you can't see the teeth, not that you have a lot of calculus. I mean, that was the original way back when. And people have used it as a gross debridement, even though that was not the intent. The intent is you can't find the teeth, and so you do a full mouth debridement, have them back a day or two later, and you can do the comprehensive and diagnosis because you can see. So I'm not sure what, I personally don't like the code, because if they need a full mouth debridement, that really means they probably need scaling and root planing. So why am I going to waste their insurance dollars on a full mouth debridement when I know what I'm going to be doing afterwards? But there are those that it's appropriate. So I'm not sure. I mean, I've read his rationale. I'm not quite sure why he's doing this. So.
Anybody else historically knows why this code exists at all? If it's appropriate and what this guy's trying to do? Any of those things?
Yeah.
Patty, this is Connie. I mean, I don't agree with him, because the purpose of the code is, like you said, that whole gross scale thing. They're unable to do an exam, which includes periodontal charting. I can't do periodontal charting if I can't see the teeth. He can't do a restorative, a diagnostic exam if he can't see the teeth. And you know, it used to be 30 years ago, this used to be everyone who came in got the gross scale and the fine scale, and then we reevaluated. Well, that's not the case anymore. We don't use this code. Hardly ever do we use this code. Only for those extreme people. So I don't agree with him. That's my personal opinion.
Well, his rationale says the perioprobian charting can be very well done, performed right after the debridement. And it seems like his rationale here is mostly based on behavior, not anything having to do with health.
Correct. And we want to see where that initial healing goes. We get all that stuff off there. They automatically, a lot of offices use this code. They use it and they automatically go into scaling and root planing. How are you going to know what the tissue is going to do unless you bring them back in and act like you've never seen that patient and start over from square one?
Yep.
That's what we do.
Yep.
Linda Jorgensen, would this really be more looking at something through a business model type way than an actual coding thing too?
Ooh, yeah. Oh, Linda.
I just don't know what to think about this recommendation, this submission. I mean, on the face of it, what he's saying is it's inefficient to insist that a patient come back for a comprehensive exam or for a final examination, and that the full mouth debridement would enable a more accurate assessment. I get that, but I mean, if you've got so much calculus and bleeding and inflamed tissues and swollen tissues, like, okay, what's the mystery? There's no mystery about that. Hello.
Yeah.
We know that patient needs periodontal treatment, debridement, scaling root planing, if we use that term, or another one. We know that ultimately we're going to find out more as we go. Like, what's the mystery? What can't you figure out? Here's the other thing.
I don't know, but we got a lot of good discussion going on here in the chat box, guys.
Uh-huh.
Lisa, Brian, please talk to us.
Patty, this is Lisa. I do believe there's an assessment code that can be used for the dentist if he wants to get billed for his time coming in to say, oh, I can't see anything, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
So I guess to me, that's where that would fall into. You use just a different code for your assessment, you have them back, then you can do your comprehensive or your limited if you wanted to.
Can somebody read Lisa Bryant's notes, because she can't, that's right, her microphone doesn't work. Can somebody read what Lisa wrote in there? Somebody read it out loud.
Lisa, can you not have a new patient in the chair and determine the exam cannot be completed until the, wait a minute, until the patient has a debridement, and that debridement can be done that day so the exam can be completed. I work in an IHS facility and it is used often. Oftentimes there is so much plaque or calculus you cannot see teeth. People who are middle-aged having a first dental visit. Okay, that's one that she wrote. And she said, we do debridement exam when needed the same day.
My question would be what kind of exam, because I agree with one of the previous speakers that there are assessment codes that could be attached to it, meaning full mouth debridement and assessment was done, and then a more complete evaluation, i.e. exam, can be done, you know, once things have healed. But there's definitely pre-diagnostic assessment codes for that. That could
D0191 would be the appropriate assessment code, assessment of the patient. That would be, as a matter of fact, to not have that with only submitting a full mouth debridement doesn't make any sense, because how do we even make the determination that that's the right thing? Or we just walk on somebody in the street, let me just slap around in your mouth, because I mean, there needs to be some level of professional assessment, so that is the D0191.
My friends up in Washington State who work in nursing homes are using that 0191 with Medicaid and other carriers along with debridement codes, and they're getting reimbursed for them. So that would
be Tiffany, you also say you agree with Lisa. Talk about your nursing homes that you're working in to give us, you know, an understanding. Tiffany, I see you written. I don't know if she's not here. She went away. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and vote on this one. This is number 77. It'll be interesting if that guy comes and defends what he wants on this one. People being there makes a difference. Okay. We have also another one that we submitted, and Kathy, why don't you go ahead and explain what we're trying to do with this one in a little bit of a different way than we are with
well, first of all, we wanted to make the periodontal maintenance language mesh up with the other suite of codes where it's not removal of bacterial plaque and calculus, to make it the same by saying disruption and removal of dental biofilm, plaque, and calculus. So that makes it in sync with the other 6 codes we've put it in. And we thought as long as we were in that code, we would take the dentist out and put dental professional in accordance with State Practice Act. Since, again, we've got dental therapists, we've got dental hygienists in direct access settings who are doing perio maintenance, and so we thought we would throw that in there also. So that's where we're going with that. And on the actual inventory, when you add in all the I'm echoing. There's like about 20 ICD-10 dental diagnostic codes: chronic gingivitis, plaque-induced, chronic gingivitis, non-plaque-induced, etc. So it gives all of these have a little punch with the diagnostic codes, where if we get asked or they start to question whether we do it, say, well, then what would we use for all these other dental diagnoses if you're not going to do it? So that's where it's coming from.
Any discussion?
Hey, Patty, it's Lisa Bryant from Alaska. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. We got you, Lisa.
Okay, I'm not the reason you're being echoed. I don't know how else to get on. I just got on my phone, but I'm also listening on my computer. So I apologize for all of this background noise. But if you have questions about what I had typed earlier, if it's not too late.
No, it's not, because I think both you and Cheryl, again, our 49th and 50th states had a different opinion, it appeared, on this one. So please share what your thoughts are. And again, you have different practice settings and different situations. So. Lisa?
So, yes, where I work is, go ahead.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
No. Lisa, Cheryl, do you want to say something while Lisa tries to get her audio to work? You have to have your computer muted if you have your phone on.
Down
that
here
better?
in Hawaii, we have a lot of Polynesians that ethnic groups that are the tartar is like cement. They don't have bone loss. It's just wall-to-wall cement. And when they come in for us to do a complete oral examination, we're not able to even probe, so we have to chunk that off. In other words, a full mouth debridement to do the subsequent exam. And to have them come back to the subsequent appointment, I understand the rationale, having them heal, see what they look like, reassess their taste. But a lot of them, we have them, and we're doing the exam. So we need to do it at that time. So we could never understand that on a subsequent visit or not to be completed on the same day.
I agree.
Lisa, are you connected?
I have experience working in the American Indian population, and it's the same thing where folks come in and they haven't been seen for many, many years, and they have maybe not so much subcalc, but it's supra as well, and you can't even see if it's buccal caries. So we do a debridement to complete the comprehensive exam on the same appointment. The periodontal condition is reviewed via x-rays, and then when they come back for what we call a fine scale appointment, they can review and do the periodontal probing, because at that time some of that severe inflammation has receded somewhat, so that you're getting more of an accurate probing depth as you review the x-rays for bone loss as well. So the debridement is something that we use very often where I work.
From the rest of our point of view, what would be the accurate code for them to use in that situation if they want to do because it's what, behavioral, you don't think the patients are going to come back. There is an abundance of calculus. They really don't qualify for any of those prophy codes that we said before. We don't know if they're periodontally involved yet. So that's why this is the accurate code. Is that?
That's exactly it. We're not sure how periodontally involved they are. So we break them apart. It's not that they won't come back. It's just that we can get a correct assessment at that time, and then the doctor goes through the exam and consult with them to let them know that this had happened. So we now have to go through periodontal scaling root planing, or we now have to send you to the gum specialist, which is usually reflected in the x-ray. So it's usually heavy scaling.
So why is it necessary to use the comprehensive evaluation code then on that first day?
Usually because we have them in the chair, and the hygienist or the dentist themselves, when they do the dental charting, oral cancer exam, medical history review, and then he goes in and he can't probe, so he breaks it all up and then puts it as he wants to put it as a full mouth debridement, because that's what pretty much he did. And then either I would go in or he would continue on with periodontal charting, and then have the full comprehensive exam done that day. Then we usually schedule them for the subsequent consultation, go over what the long-term plans are, where we're going to break it down in a way of their lifestyle. It's really depends on the person and how we know their families. And so we break down a doable treatment plan for them, but with the goal to get them back to health.
Is
I
there
agree
diagnosis
with everything
being made?
Cheryl's talking about there, because it's the same thing where I'm out here. We've got people traveling in from rural villages, and they're trying to get as much done as possible while they're staying with family in the local area.
So for the rest of us, what's your thoughts on, is this an accurate code without that language then? I mean, should there be a full month debridement code is what it really comes down to.
I think
and
so.
would it be, this separation of the comprehensive evaluation, This is where Linda Jorgensen's question really started.
A lot of us won't use that code because it's not on a subsequent visit. So we just, in other words, he just sucks up the that procedure, and he just does the comprehensive exam because it says on a subsequent visit, and we cannot do it on a subsequent visit. So he'll do the full body debridement perio chart and not include that because it doesn't fit the code.
Yeah. Okay.
I like how it's written with the full master right to enable a comprehensive evaluation and diagnosis. Therefore, that reads to me that debridement can be done at the same time the comprehensive evaluation is completed on the same day.
I would like that.
What Cheryl was saying, her dentist is just sucking up that evaluation fee to charge out the full cost debridement. It'd be nice to be able to charge the both.
Half an hour appointment that he cannot charge for, but he does, or I do. Just the first. Thank you.
It could be that just deleting the word comprehensive out of it, that would leave, if a patient, at least you can debride them, take a look at what could be done, but not be pigeonholed into having to do a comprehensive at that time, because maybe you can only do an assessment. Maybe, maybe it should read full mouth debridement to find the teeth. I don't know, but but at least if we're going to agree with this, take the word comprehensive out. Just
I think the comprehensive should be there because it's a comprehensive, say, on a existing patient that hasn't been seen for the last 7 years.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's be a little more broad if you didn't pigeonhole it to one specific evaluation that could apply to the others too. So anyway.
I have a suggestion, just a consideration. What about replacing the word comprehensive with accurate or more accurate?
I like that. I like to enable an accurate evaluation. That way you're not stuck on any specific kind of exam evaluating that you can see the teeth and then do what's necessary. You might do the debridement and just find out that you need to focus on a point and shoot.
Patty, this is Jamie. I like the idea of this because certain demographics of the country, it's more relative. Like they said, where somebody's not getting in, just take out comprehensive.
Yeah. So, well, it'll be interesting to see how this is heard by the committee. And thank you. That was very helpful for all the rest of us to understand. We were on this perio maintenance.
Thanks for listening.
Any further discussion on the perio maintenance? Okay. What I'm going to do is, even though we have it scheduled for us to do, this is a lot of numbers there, and it's not as much to discuss as it might look. At the same time, I want to honor our time frame. Do we want to table this till our next meeting? What's the group say? We can.
I need to be done for the night, Patty, but I can do either way.
I think everybody does. So let's vote. Okay, I'm going to vote. So I'm going to vote with the pointer, and we're going to move that to the next time because, again, I think this discussion of teledentistry, this discussion of the prophy codes, as well as this full mouth debridement code, I think this is really excellent. We can keep moving this around. Our agenda is flexible to the needs of the group. So thank you. Thank you to all of you for your participation. This makes a huge difference. Thank you for all of that you contribute. We will meet again on the 10th of February. Again, I will send you the inventory in advance so that you can have it in front of you. Until then, text, email, Facebook, Instant Messenger, anyway, that I can help you. We're up to it. We're forging the future. We're not waiting for anybody else to do the future for us. We're forging it together. So thank you, everyone, and good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Thanks.
everybody.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.